video ever. I like seeing pretty much creepypasta stories, and I pretty much get them from Creepypasta Wiki. Probably you guys already know that. And for you guys that are too lazy to read them, I am one of the storytellers, or going to be, hopefully, and I'll suck at this. I'm going to tell you the story of Laughing Jack. You can look it up. I'll leave it in the link below. Leave it in the description. And hopefully this will not suck. This is my first video, and please, no trolling. I hate it. Here we go. Sorry if I do a couple of mistakes, and I'll probably put a comments in there, so don't judge me. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but had always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. Could he finally meet a friend? Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. I feel like something bad's gonna happen. When I went into the backyard, I was a bit confused, because James was the only one back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. James, it's time to come inside, I called out to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. James, who were you talking to out there? I asked. James looked up for me at a moment. I was playing with my new friend, he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to cry, as a good mother would. Does your friend have a name? Why didn't you ask him to have lunch with us? I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying. His name is Laughing Jack. I was a bit taken by what he had said. Oh, that's a strange name. What does your friend look like? I asked a bit confused. He's a clown. He has long hair and a big swirly curled nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles. I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend, so I suppose it's normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phrase. Wow, this mom is mean. The rest of the day went by, as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn off all the lights before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed right after that. I had an awful nightmare. It was dark, in some kind of run-down amusement park. I was scared, running through an endless field of empty tents, broken-down rides, and abandoned game houses. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts. All the sick grins stitched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly I began to hear the music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to the circus tent, almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining at the center of the big top. And as I walked towards the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel, the monkey threw twists in fun. Then the music stopped, right before its climax. And suddenly, the lights shut on. The intensity of the lights was practically blinding. All I could see was a small, dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Then another one appeared, and another one. There were dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew near. As they brought closer, I could see they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed that they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their bodies. Others were severely burnt. The others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and turning inside me. As the children tore me apart and I faded away, all I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw as few James action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James was probably woken up early and put these here. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James's room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back in his toy box and headed out to the living room. A little while later, James woke up, and I made him some breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shot up at me. For a moment they quickly glanced back down at the cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes and responded, "Will you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in his room?" James nodded and finished up his breakfast, then decided to go back and play in the backyard. Wow, this mother is really stupid. Okay. I went to relax in the living room, as I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple hours later. Shit, I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours and I hadn't checked on him. I went, I'm sorry, typo. I stepped outside into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him, "James! James! Where are you?" Just then I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gate to the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a long sigh of relief and walked over to him. "James, how many times have I told you to stay in the back?" "James, what are you eating?" James looked up at me, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a handful of candies in all colors. That made me nervous. "James, who gave you the candy?" James just stared at me speaking. "James, please tell Mommy where you got the candy." James hung his head down and said, "Laughing Jack gave it to me." My heart sunk. I knelt down to look at him in the eyes. "James, I have not had a dang thing about Laughing Jack. He is not real. Now this is serious situation, and I need to know who gave you the candy." I could see my son's eyes tear up. "But Mom, Laughing Jack did give me the candy." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me, but what he's telling me is impossible. I make him spit out the candy and throw the rest away. James appears to be fine. Maybe I'm just overreacting. All he could have gotten from Tom and Linda from next door, or maybe Mr. Walker down the street. Either way, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on him.